Welcome to Theta Spring Hypnosis, where we're going to begin to answer the question of, can everybody get hypnotized? And does stage hypnosis really work? I'd like to begin with that yes, everybody can be hypnotized. However, everyone begins to be hypnotized differently. Technically speaking, hypnosis is a deep state of relaxation brought on by an overload of the mind where you begin to enter into a suggestible state. This suggestible state happens because the mind begins to disassociate from the conscious, logical mind. Now, what happens in yes, stage hypnosis does exist, but the stage hypnotist is looking for a very particular person. These people are called somnambulists, and they are very highly suggestible in their daily lives. That doesn't mean they're not good at what they do. That doesn't mean that they're flaky or unfocused. They just can be overloaded and overstimulated quite quickly. Now, what you need to begin to understand, and this was taught by John Kappas at the school that I actually graduated for hypnosis, was Hypnosis Motivational Institute, or HMI. He discovered that everyone gets hypnotized differently. And what that means is, if you look at a scale of personality types, and we're going to call them emotionals on one side and physicals on the other. It basically boils down to introverts and extroverts. And it is a bimodal curve where people can fall anywhere on it. Now, right in the center, where it would almost be 50% physical, 50% emotional, you get a group of people called somnambulists. They can get overloaded very quickly, and it's who the stage hypnotist is looking for, as I mentioned before. Now, when you go to hypnotize an emotional, and there are ways to figure out who's an emotional, who's a physical by listening to their language, an emotional or an introvert, they are constantly looking for a sub-message. They will read body language, tones of the voice. They begin to go, is what you say what you mean? And so they're very metaphorical in the way that they talk, such as, I feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. Therefore, when you go to hypnotize them, you have to make things very relative for them, such as you are going to feel light as a feather, so that they can begin to understand the relative scale of what your suggestion is trying to get them to do. On the flip side, you have what are called the physicals, and physicals get hypnotized with very direct suggestions. I tend to find that most of the people who fall in the physical category are much more of the type A personalities, and you can speak very directly to them, such as you'll feel light, or do this, do that. Now, within those categories, you can fall anywhere on the scale. You can be 80-20, 20-80, 50-50, which is the somnambulist group. And so you have to really tailor your approach to the person that's being hypnotized. Just because someone comes in and says, I'm so tired, I'm really overwhelmed, that does not mean that they are not good candidates for hypnosis. But one of the things that you do have to have with each and every one of your clients or people that you're going to hypnotize is you must have rapport with them. You need to let them know that the state that they're going into, they are not under your control, and that they are actually very aware of everything that is going to happen and will happen, even though when they come out of the deep hypnotic states, the somnambulistic depth, where you have a brain wavelength of theta, there is a bit of amnesia coming out of it. And I don't like to call it amnesia because I think the word amnesia has a very negative connotation, because you know exactly what's going on at the time, because what happens is your perception really narrows in and becomes very focused to here. Whereas in the awake conscious state, you have a very wide scope of focus. So even though in the hypnotic state, the deepest hypnotic state, there's about, I believe it's a 70-80% of amnesia. There's that word I'm not liking. You know exactly what's happening at the time, but when you come out of it, it's kind of like coming up from a dream. You remember the things that have happened. You remember the details when you're dreaming, but you don't necessarily remember them all coming out of the sleep state. So that's one thing to remember. But if you do not have rapport with your client, you really need to begin to let them trust you, because the mind works off of associations in the subconscious mind. You are leading them to a place that is unknown. And if they have no association of what it is, what it's going to be like, look like, feel like, there is an apprehension into going into those deeper depths. That doesn't mean that it can't happen. It is like riding a bike. The more you do it, the better you become. You can learn to go into the hypnotic state quite quickly if you allow yourself and if you have good rapport with your client. So induction techniques, there's many. You have to play to the strength of the client. You have to read their body language. What you might begin to notice as you're talking with them and as they begin to get overloaded and overstimulated, the eyes begin to glaze over. The next thing you can look for is breath. A normal breath looks like that. A hypnotic breath is very shallow, and the sleep breath is very long and rolling. So you'll be able to tell in the hypnotic state because the breathing becomes very shallow, almost it looks like they're not breathing at times. Sometimes clients will freak themselves out a little bit because they go, oh my God, I'm not breathing. I wasn't even thinking about it, even though your subconscious mind, which is where your innate abilities and breathing is, they know how to take over and they know what to do. Whether you're swimming, running, sleeping, eating, you know how to breathe. So the other things that you need to play into is your client a visual learner? If they can't visualize, throwing a lot of visualize this and visualize that at them is not going to work. They might be able to imagine it. It might not be a crystal clear picture. Maybe it's somewhere they've been before, so you have to play to that. Then you get the sensor feelers. Anxiety, that's a sensation, that's a feeling. Can you tap into how calm the body can be? Because when you do go into the hypnotic state, which technically is on the way to sleep, it's the state between awake and sleep, your body becomes very heavy. Your muscles loosen, they soften. Your body just lets go. So if someone can fall asleep, technically speaking, you absolutely can enter into the hypnotic state. In fact, you do it each and every night when you fall asleep and when you wake up. So the answer is yes, everyone can be hypnotized. However, everyone will get hypnotized differently, and what might work for one person might not work for another. So as a hypnotherapist, you have to really play to the client's strength. You tailor your technique to them, not them to you. And so you're going to learn. The first session, you're learning how they learn. There's no such thing as bad feedback, and I want you guys to all begin to work with that. Remember that when you're working with someone, play to their strength. I hope you learned a lot. My name is Alexandra Janelli with Theta Spring Hypnosis. Have a beautiful day.